Begin with 2 pieces of chipboard measuring 3.5 by 4.5 inches and 2 more measuring 4.5 by 2 5/8 of an inch. You will also need 4 structure strips measuring 4.5 inches by 1 inch, and they're scored in the middle, and 2 additional ones measuring 3.5 inches by 1 inch, as well scored in the middle. And as you can see, the structure strips have the score tape on the back side. Now we will assemble the box, and we will start by attaching the structure strip as shown to one of the chipboard pieces measuring 3.5 by 4.5 inches. Try not to overlap the score line, and make sure that when you fold the structure strip you have the straight angle. Now attach another structure strip to the same piece of chipboard, and once again make sure that you are not overlapping the score line. Now we will take one of the narrower chipboard pieces, and we will start to attach that piece as well to the structure strip. Make sure that you are keeping it in a standing position close to the previous chipboard piece, and then lift the structure strip and stick it down to the chipboard piece that you are holding. Then when you unfold, you can see that you have gaps which are the same thickness as the thickness of the chipboard, and this is exactly what you need to have. Now we're just keeping on placing the structure strips and attaching the chipboard pieces to them in order to get the box base for our mini album. Great, starts to get the shape. Now I'm attaching the rest of the structure strips which were left. And 2 more, which are, if you remember, 2 5/8 of an inch by 1 inch. Well, you should find the way which is more convenient for you to attach the structure strips. Just try different ways. I mean, you can hold them in your hands, you can place them on the working surface, whatever you feel more comfortable with. Now this is what you need to have. You need one more piece of chipboard, which is 3.5 by 5 and 2 5/8 of an inch, and this will be the bottom of the box. So you attach that piece where I show you. You cut several additional structure strips, 2 which are 2 5/8 of an inch by 1 inch, and 2 more which are 3.5 inches by 1 inch. They're also, as usual, scored in the middle and have the score tape on their backside. Now attach the structure strips really close to the edge of that bottom piece. Try not to overlap the edge. You're going to attach them on all of the 4 sides of the bottom piece of the box. Smaller ones close to the edge. Make sure that they're not additional structure strips which are 4.5 inches by 1 inch, and you will start to attach them as follows. Once again, close to the edge of the chipboard piece, but not overlapping, without any overhangings. It needs to get just up to the spacing between the chipboard pieces, but it's not overhanging anywhere. Just pay attention to that. And the fourth one. Maybe you will feel more convenient attaching the structure strips in some other order, but this is the order that I found the most convenient for myself when I'm working and assembling the boxes. Now let's cut some designer paper. These two pieces measure 3 3/8 of an inch by 4 3/8 of an inch, and two additional ones measure 2.5 by 4 3/8 of an inch. I'm using the Voyage Beneath the Sea collection from Graphic 45, and this piece is just for the bottom. This is 2.5 inches by 3 3/8 of an inch. I'm using the plain craft cardstock because anyway it will be the inside bottom piece, and I thought that it can definitely be plain and not covered with a designer paper. So you glue the bottom piece first. Now we will start to assemble the box. Remove the backing from one of the structure strips. And then keep the chipboard piece at a straight angle, and only then burnish on the structure strip in order to stick it down to the side of the chipboard. Do exactly the same from the left side, as you see me doing right now. Now we need to attach the bottom piece, so I'm removing the tape backing from one of the longer structure strips of the bottom piece. I'm burnishing it, making sure that the side flaps are in the inside of the box and not outside. Now form the straight angle there in the corner. Make sure that the pieces meet in the corner, and only then burnish and make sure that everything is glued down properly with the score tape. The same here. The two chipboard pieces should meet and create a perfect corner, and only then you can burnish. Now we need to close the box. I'm just checking how it will look like. Now you need several more structure strips, and these are 3.5 inches by 1 inch. They are scored in the middle on the short side, and two additional ones which are 2 5/8 of an inch, also scored in the middle on the short side, and they have the score tape just trimming a little bit the corners on all of the 4 of these structure strips. And we will be covering the top sides of the box, top panels, with these structure strips. Only after this we will start to glue the designer paper to the inside panels. I like to remove the tape backing from one half of the structure strip, and only then, when it's aligned and placed correctly, I add a little bit of glue just to the edge, top edge of the chipboard piece, as you see me doing now. Then I burnish on the edge, and only then I glue the structure strip down. This helps to get the really crisp edge. The same thing here. And we're going to do this to all the 4 edges, top edges of the box. Okay, let's glue one of the pieces of the designer paper now. I take one of the larger ones, and pay attention where exactly I glue it down to the box. I mean, where all of the hinges and the structure strips are attached. There in the middle. Now one of the 2 narrower pieces. Well, this is the first time when I need to record a narration after recording the video, because I couldn't do that while working. The children were sleeping all the time. Okay, so I needed to be silent. Okay, now let's remove the tape backing from the 2 structure strips, and we will kind of stick them down together in the corner. Now remove the tape backing from one of the additional structure strips that I'm showing to you right now, and fold it inside the box's base and not on top. Now form a perfect corner there on the right side now, and also pay attention that you have a nice corner on top. And after this, burnish on the structure strips from the inside of the box. Now you can remove the tape backing from one of the structure strips, which are on the outside. Glue them down as well, and the longer one. finish on one more of the structure strips on the inside. Now I'm just keeping on placing the structure strips on the top edges of the box, exactly the same way as we did before. I will add the glue to the top edge of the chipboard, and then I will glue the structure strip down, the second half of it. If you will have the chipboard of the natural color, if you are using the natural color showing in the corners, you can take the black marker. It may be a Sharpie, or I don't know, maybe Copic if you have one, and just paint the corners, paint the chipboard in the corners on the top, where it shows. If they're not fully covered with the cardstock. Now we need 2 more structure strips for the bottom, and these will be 2 3/8 of an inch, and not 2 5/8 of an inch like they were before. So I'm cutting 2 additional ones, measuring 2 3/4 of an inch. I will score them in the middle, and I will add, as usual, the score tape. And now we are ready to place them on the outside of the box, trimming the corners. And attaching them to the box. And just as before, I like to remove only 1/2 of the tape backing to align the structure strip first, and only then to continue adding the wet glue to the seam on top of the chipboard. Now we have 2 of those designer paper pieces left, and we will glue them down to the inside panels of the box after it's already assembled. Try to make sure that you leave a little bit of the border from the top. Okay, so the base of the box for the mini album is almost ready. Now let's have a look at the pieces that we have here. I have the designer paper in some cutouts from the paper collection, and the base piece is 3 3/8 of an inch by 4 3/8 of an inch. The same piece for the other side. To save some time, I've already cut out the images. Now, two of the pieces for the panels on the sides with the pulls, and that line is 1.5 inch away from the top of the designer paper piece. I drew that line in order to know where exactly to attach the pulls so that they will be at the same level, and this piece is for the bottom of the box. Now I also have the chipboard piece for the lid, which is 4 inches by 3 1/8, and you attach the score tape and you cover it with black cardstock, which is 1/2 inch longer, larger from all of the 4 sides. This piece is with the knob on top, which is in the center of the piece, of the designer paper piece. And these are 2 frames which I cut out using the Sizzix die, which is called the ornate frame number 2. I cut it from chipboard, then I covered them with the designer paper and attached the chipboard walls, which are 1/2 inch wide by 3 1/8 of an inch long, 2 of them, and 2 more are 2 1/4 of an inch long by 1/2 inch wide. The designer paper is 3/8 of an inch, and as you can see, I put the designer paper outside of the frame as well as on the inside. I covered the chipboard pieces first with a black acrylic paint, just to make sure that they go good with the black cardstock that I'm using. Now I glued them down with the glossy accents, and you will see that later. I don't know why that part of the video did not record. And now I'm just taking care of the lid. I'm removing the tape backing and wrapping it with the black cardstock. Now we need to make a hole in the middle of that piece in order to attach the knob, and I'm using that designer paper piece as a template for marking the place for the hole. Just placing it on top, centering it, and marking the place with a pencil. Now if you have a big bite or any other punch screwdriver, which I'm using in this case, use it. Crocodile will not get to there because you see the lid is quite large for that. Now I'm gluing the designer paper piece down to the top of the lid. And basically we need another piece of the designer paper which is the same, with the same measurements for the inside checking that the hole is okay for the knob. Now let's cover the outside of the box with designer paper pieces that we've prepared. I start from the bottom piece. Now the sides. Center it and leave a slight border from all of the four sides. Burnish to ensure that they are glued down nicely. Had a slight problem with the glue. Okay, the second side is done. Now to the front panels. This is what I have been talking about, that the video was not shot, but the frames were glued down to the cardstock pieces using the glossy accents, and I will be using the glossy accents as well in order to glue down the feet to the box. Now they are glued down. Just checking that I can already touch them, that they are secure on the surface of the box. Now I've cut out the piece of the designer paper which is exactly the same size as the top one, and it's the 3 7/8 of an inch by 3 inches. Now just gluing it down to the inside of the top lid, and we need to punch another hole in the lid in order to be able to put the knob. Now this hinge piece for the pages needs to be attached to the lid. In order to create that hinge mechanism, you will take a piece of paper which is 3 1/4 of an inch by 8 5/8 of an inch, and you will score at 1 1/8 of an inch from each side on the long side, from the right and left on the long side I mean, and then all the space which is in between you will score at every 3/8 of an inch. You will assemble it just as you would in the usual way that you assemble the pieces for the mini albums. Now I'm just punching the hole on that hinged system once again in order to be able to place the knob once I glue that hinge down to the lid. Remove the tape backing and attach that piece to the lid while centering it, and use that hole that you've created on the lid as your guide. Here we go. Now we can finally attach the knob. And move on to the part of decorations. Yeah. To decorate the bottom part of the shadow boxes, I decided to add some art stones by Prima to create something which looks like sand. So I will be adding a layer of glossy accents at the bottom, and then I will be just sprinkling some mini art stones on top of that. The layer of glossy accents should be quite generous in order to hold a good amount of the mini stones. I'm trying to get behind those paper cut pieces. Making sure that the mini stones stuck to the glossy accents layer. Now I have to do the same on the other side of the box. Just the very same thing. Make sure that you get a good coverage with the glossy accents, and then add the mini stones. I'm not getting all the way to the front of the frame because I basically need the mini stones to be more in the back of the frame, because I will be adding some really um, tiny shells there. I did the same here at this metal frame that I will be adding on top of the lid. So here are the shells that I will be gluing on top of the mini stones using the hot glue. I'm just trying to figure out where to position them. Since they're so tiny, there's tweezers lying there on the side, and I will be using them in order to hold the shells. that seahorse was kind of hanging in the air, so I decided to add a little piece of chipboard in order to stabilize it on top of the frame. as nice as the narrower border would look like. The very same piece in terms of measurements is glued down to the other side of the page. So now the base page with the flap, with the photo mat are ready, and the photo mat is held inside. So now I will be embellishing the page, the front of the page, with several elements which were cut from the paper collection, as well as more of the sea themed die cuts, and some flowers and some metal embellishments as well. So I guess you already understood that each page will be embellished on the front side, and the back side will be entitled for holding the pictures, as well as the inside photo mat. The dies that I'm using here are mostly by La La Land Crafts. I really like how they suited here the whole theme of the project. So here I'm showing you the finished pages that I have before attaching them to the top lid of the box. I've also added some white acrylic paint splatters. Once all the pages are ready, you can start attaching them to the hinge piece on top of the lid. And I like to start from the last page and moving forward to the first one. So just make sure that you are centering the page on top of that hinge before pressing down and gluing it to the hinge itself. In the same fashion, attach the rest of the pages. Each time, make sure that you are centering the page on the hinge, because they are slightly wider than the hinge itself. The last one. Everything is ready. The photo mats stay inside and don't fall out even when you are holding that lid with your hand. So now just put everything inside the box and you are ready to go. You finished the whole project. Let's flip through. That's all, folks. Thank you very much for watching, and see See you soon.